Episode 6. It was very dark inside tunnel number 972. The light from his hat alone was not enough to completely illuminate the darkness of the tunnel. Xeon stood facing the wall at the end of the tunnel. The marks from the pickaxe were still visible on the wall. It was a trace left by someone who came before Xeon. It seemed like a sight of a miner hitting his pickaxe with all his might in an underground space where not a single ray of sunlight could reach in order to dig up magic stones. 4 such miners died here. Why? The miners wouldn't have died for no reason. There must be something here that caused the miners' deaths. There is no such thing as in effect without a cause. Xeon propped his pickaxe against the wall and began to carefully examine the inside of the mine shaft. The mana is thick, but, there was a lot of mana accumulated inside the tunnel. If it was before Xeondo awakened, I wouldn't have noticed. Why? Is there only mana gathered here? I've heard stories that people experience side effects when exposed to mana for long periods of time. There are countless side effects, including cell death, due to mana oversaturation, rapid aging of organs, and more. If what he felt was true, the miners must have died because of the mana here. Park Man Ho was also an awakened one, so if he had come inside, he would have definitely felt the excessive concentration of mana. However, he had been so absorbed in gambling that he had not been inside the tunnel for a long time. So it was clear that he had not noticed. The problem is why mana is only accumulated here. Xeon looked at the tunnel wall. For now, the only place worth suspecting was that wall. Xeon picked up his pickaxe and struck the wall inside the mine shaft. Bam! Bang! The pickaxe struck and sparks flew everywhere. Every time he struck the pickaxe, the rock crumbled helplessly. Puck! It felt like the pickaxe was sinking in particularly deeply. And what? Xeon looked puzzled and struck the pickaxe hard again. Boom! The wall collapsed with a loud noise. An oval-shaped space was rippling where the wall had collapsed. Xeon's eyes widened at the appearance of a space that was so black and foreign that it looked like the throat of a beast. And swish. At that moment, a powerful force pulled Xeon towards it. Xeon was sucked into the black space without even being able to protest. The moment I entered the black space, I felt an enormous pressure. A pain as if his entire body was being crushed came over him. My mind went blank. The pain overwhelmed me, and I couldn't think straight. All I could think about was wanting to get out of this moment quickly. Advertisements. Fortunately, that moment came quickly. Thud. The black space vomited out Xeon. Xeon rolled on the floor a few times and then quickly got up from his seat. What is this hellish landscape? Just a moment ago, he had clearly been in a deep underground tunnel. But now, a completely different scene unfolded before his eyes. I could see a huge mountain in the distance. The pitch-black mountain was spewing out black smoke and red lava. The sky was filled with volcanic ash, and lava flowed like rivers on the ground. All the plants were burned to ash, and the air was filled with the smell of sulfur. An intense heat was rising from the hardened lava ground. The heat of the desert was incomparably intense. In an instant, Xeon's face turned bright red and sweat poured down like rain. Before he knew it, his clothes were soaking wet with sweat. Is it a dungeon? Xeon looked at the entrance to the dungeon he had been thrown into. The dungeon entrance was closing quickly, as if it had served its purpose. Oh my God. No. When Xeon ran towards it, it was completely closed and there was no trace of it. This is driving me crazy. Xeon scratched his head. It was nice to enter the dungeon, but I really didn't know I would enter so defenselessly. Even in Neo Soul, we were fully prepared when conquering dungeons. You can guess the level of the dungeon by looking at its size, and then form a raid party with awakened players that match the level. Even if you enter a dungeon with thorough preparation, there are still a lot of casualties. It was absurd to be dropped into a dungeon like that without any preparation. This is a really completely unlucky day. How can I be this unlucky? It was so absurd that it was mind-boggling. From having the magic stone stolen for a cheap price by Klexi Inspiration, to the bad relationship with Parkman Ho, and then to being suddenly dragged into the dungeon. Everything was perfect. It was as if the god who orchestrates fate had personally taken control of the situation. Xeon took out the hourglass he had kept in his pocket and looked at it. Is this the only thing that was salvaged? I felt a little better as I fiddled with the hourglass. Only then was I able to think calmly. First, I need to check if my abilities work inside the dungeon. Xeon bent down and swept the floor with his hands. Black grains came out on my hands. It was volcanic ash. Xeon raised his dominance. Then, the sand in his hand slowly rose into the air. Fortunately, volcanic ash, like sand, seemed to be under his control. Xeon thought he was lucky, because if his greatest weapon, his mastery of sand, had not worked, he would have been in trouble. The dungeon was filled with volcanic ash. He has a wide range of weapons at his disposal. Xeon breathed a sigh of relief. First of all, it didn't seem like I would die without a fight. The next thing Xeon did was check inside his backpack. Advertisements. Luckily, there was a few days' worth of food in the backpack. It was fortunate that it wasn't damaged or spoiled while passing through the dungeon entrance. I think I can last a few days at this level. Now that we had confirmed that there were no food issues, all that remained was to find the exit to the dungeon. The problem is that you can't tell where the dungeon exit is in this vast space. In this case, there was only one way. I had to walk around and check it myself. It's probably likely to be near a volcano, right? Anyone who looked at it could see that the center of this dungeon was the volcano. Then it was clear that there would be a clue to escape the dungeon in the volcano. And quat. After. And quat. Xeon took a deep breath. My throat felt sore. Volcanic ash floating in the air irritates the airways. It was clear that if they didn't get out quickly, their lungs would be destroyed by the volcanic ash. Xeon took a piece of cloth out of his backpack. It was a cloth used as a substitute for a mask to prevent inhaling stone dust when mining magic stones. When I covered my mouth and nose with a cloth, the pain in my airway went away a little. And quat. Let's go. And quat. Xeon moved towards the volcano. Asterisk. The more I looked, the more amazing it became. I knew that dungeons were places where human common sense did not apply, but I really had no idea that they would be this incomprehensible. The huge volcano seen in the distance was by no means an illusion or an illusion. It was a real volcano spewing lava and flames. The heated air and the earth were telling me that all this was real. Sweat flowed like rain. Even though he was awakened, he was still at this level. If a normal person had been sucked into the dungeon, he would have died before he could last long. I guess I can go out. Although Xeon was proud of his uniqueness, he could not help but be intimidated by the harsh environment he had never seen before. But for now, there was no choice but to move forward. Xeon stopped, because a huge river of lava blocked his path. Even though there was still quite a distance left, I felt like my whole body was on fire from the intense fire. The river of lava was tens of meters wide. Jumping over it in one go was too much for Xeon right now. Xeon moved to find a place where the width narrowed. As I went upstream, I came across a place that was about 10 meters wide. It was a distance that was good enough to jump and quat after, and quat. Xeon paused for a moment and took a deep breath. With my current physical condition, I thought I could run. However, if I misstepped or lost my balance in mid-air, I would fall into the river of lava. If that happens, it will melt away without leaving a single bone fragment. Nevertheless, Xeon had no choice but to prepare to run. Xeon, who had been staring at the river of lava for a moment, ran at full speed. Chat. Advertisements. He jumped with all his might right in front of the river of lava. Xeon's body flew through the air like a bird. That was when Xeon reached his peak. Phew. Suddenly, something shot out of the lava and towards Xeon, and quat. What? And quat. Xeon looked down at his feet in horror. A huge gaping mouth, flame-filled, bumpy skin, 4 short legs attached to a long, snake-like body. It was a crocodile. A giant crocodile hiding in a river of lava, awaiting its prey. Each tooth was as long as a person's arm. There were countless teeth like that. It was clear that if Xeon's body got caught in those teeth, it would be torn apart in an instant. It was empty space, so there was no place to escape. I tried to deploy the sandblaster, but the sand was too far away. I was sure I would be dead before I could even gather the sand. Xeon twisted in the air, gathering sand. Tayak. By the hair's breadth, the crocodile bit the air and fell back into the river of lava. But things weren't going well for Xeon either. He narrowly escaped the crocodile's attack. But the price he paid was losing his balance and falling into a river of lava. In the river of lava, the usual crocodile stood with its huge mouth wide open. If you don't stop the fall, you'll get eaten by the crocodile. At that moment, floating sand appeared in Xeon's eyes. It was the sand that had been gathered a little while ago. Xeon imagined instinctively. I drew a picture of making a foothold with sand floating in front of my eyes. Imagination becomes reality. A platform made of sand was created beneath his falling feet. Pot. Without another thought, Xeon kicked off the sand platform and flew forward. The sand, now out of use, quickly dispersed, but thanks to it, Xeon was barely able to reach the other side, although he ended up falling on his back instead of his feet. Ugh! Xeon groaned as the shock felt like his whole body was being shattered. However, Xeon didn't even have time to feel the pain. Qua! A giant crocodile emerges from the river of lava and approaches Xeon. Thick lava flowed down the crocodile's massive body. Damn! Rit! This monster! Xeon quickly stepped back, but the crocodile approached faster than him. Even though it had short legs, it was short compared to its huge torso, and it was thicker and larger than an average log. Of course, the walking speed was also very fast. Sandblaster. Xeon fired his sandblaster. However, the high-pressure sand stream did not inflict any damage on the giant crocodile and instead melted it. The giant crocodile was emitting heat as intense as lava. causing it to melt in an instant before it even touched the sand. And quat, crazy, and quat. Advertisements. Xeon opened his eyes wide. He really didn't expect his attacks to be blocked so pointlessly. The crocodile flew at incredible speed and bit Xeon. Xeon couldn't react at all as he looked at the huge gaping mouth. That was when writing with sand. You have an interesting ability. Suddenly a rough, muffled voice came from the air. Xeon looked in the direction where the voice came from without realizing it. Someone was falling from the air through the volcanic ash. A huge sword was in the hand of the man who was falling at a terrifying speed, as if he was a bird with folded wings. He swung his huge sword forward and clashed directly with the giant crocodile. Boom! There was an explosion as if a meteor had struck, and a huge shockwave swept through the area. The shockwave caused the lava that had been flowing quietly to splash in all directions. And quat, what, and quat. Xeon covered his ears with both hands and made an expression of disbelief. The once threatening giant crocodile was crushed to pieces like a piece of tofu. On top of the crushed giant crocodile was an old man of enormous size. The old man's eyes were so terrifying that he couldn't even be recognized as human. The old man asked Xeon, "What is your name?" The voice that rumbled from deep within my stomach was scarier than a giant crocodile.